Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we will talk about creating a test case. In my last video I discussed about creating a test case, the test case design techniques, but today I want to do something different. So I will go through an exercise, a specification exercise, and actually tell you how I would create test cases and what should you really focus on when you create a test case. So enjoy!
Okay, so let's start. This exercise that we will be discussing today is a specification exercise. I'm gonna read you the whole specification and then I'm gonna go through each of the topics that I want to talk to you about. So you are asked to test a user creation page and receive the documentation below. What questions would you ask in order to clarify requirements? And as you can see, the user creation window must look like in the image below. We've got email, first name and last name mandatory, save and cancel button. We got a short screenshot with welcome, name and surname, change password button and log off button. Functionality description. Here we have first, create a new user by filling in the following fields: email, name, email, first name, last name, and click the save button. All fields except alphanumeric characters, length 6 to 13 characters. After user is created, he receives an email with a temporary password that needs to be changed shortly. The user will then use his credential to log in into the website and have an email address. First name and last name displayed on the home page. User data is saved into the database in the following places. And you have here the specification. Email should be varchar with 30 characters. First name should be varchar with 10 characters. Last name should be varchar with 12 characters. And user creation should not take longer than 3 seconds. Okay, I'm gonna let you just think about all of this for a few seconds. Okay, what do you think? Are you ready? Let's begin. So, first things first, here we are. You have to remember this is a video about test cases. So in order for you to create test cases about a certain app or web or whatever it is, mobile application, first you need to understand the specifications or the requirements. In this case, as you can already see, this is a user creation page and it is written here. Let me just point this out, that after the user is created, he receives an email with a temporary password. Okay, email field is not marked as mandatory, so this is the first requirement that is not correct. Email should be mandatory because otherwise where do you receive your credentials? Second, if we're still here at the email, after user is created, he receives an email with a temporary password that needs to be changed shortly. What is shortly? This is not a requirement. This needs to be specified within 10 days, within a week, within 5 hours. It needs to be specified. Okay, next up, let's go from the top, but it's the same. If you go from the top, the first one was create a new user by filling the following fields: email, first name, last name, and clicking the. I don't know if both first and last name are mandatory, but yeah, this is not my specification. I'm just here to create test cases about it. Okay, so second description. All fields except alphanumeric characters, length 6 to 13 characters. Okay, this is not okay, because if you read this sentence and then you look over the database, you're gonna have some conflicts over here. You see here, email 30, first name 10, last name 12. It doesn't mention anything about 10, 12. So if you enter a username, first name or last name with 13 characters or more than 10 and 12, you're gonna get an error because you cannot save them in the database. So these are the few red flags that pop into my mind when I first read this exercise. Then let's move on. The user will then use his credentials to log in into the website and have email address, first name and last name displayed on the home page. Okay, did you got it? The missing point will use his credential to log in and have email address. As you can already see on the home page, we only have first and last name and no email address. So this needs to be clarified before moving forward. And last but not least, user creation should not take longer than 3 seconds. Okay, this is not valid because a few people in the world could write their email, first name and last name within 3 seconds and then click save. So this is a little bit let's say not really acceptable or not realistic at all. Okay, let's say you clarify the requirements. What do you do next? What do you start testing with? 99% of the people, I mean most of the people that I've been in interviews with, and I also show them this exercise, start with the negative case. For example, you don't fill all the mandatory fields and you click save, or you put, I don't know, space everywhere, or no input and just click save. Or they would test negative scenarios instead of testing the main flow. So main flow needs to be the first thing you test. So yeah, I'm repeating myself. First thing you test is, does it work? You fill in correct email, first name, last name, click save, and does it work? That's the really important scenario you need to test at first. Then you need to start thinking, yes, negative scenarios. If you feel invalid email address, for example, if you feel no first name, then no last name, or more than 30 characters, what happens? Is the limitation put on client side or on server side or in the DB, or how are the error handling in this case? What happens if you don't fill any email? Because of course this is mandatory, we already discussed. This needs to be mandatory. Okay, what else? You can think of so many things that, yeah, it says about alphanumeric characters. What happens if you put special characters? What happens if you put, I don't know, for example, you leave all the fields empty, you click save, and then you will get I assume you will get an error. Then you only fill the first field, which is email, and then click save. What happens? And yeah, this is the type of thinking I suggest and I encourage to people to take them one step at a time. Even if you have 3 fields here, you have to think of all the combination between them and also separately. So yeah, you need to test each of the fields individually, but you have 3 fields, so you need to also test the interaction between them. What happens if you fill only 1 and 2? Leave 3 empty, then you leave first name empty, then you trigger the error with first name, and then you delete email and you trigger again the save. Yeah, you need to think of all the scenarios that are possible in this case, and what would be your, let's say, what would you do? How would you try to crash this application? Yeah, I know, I said crash. I mean, every tester usually thinks of finding bugs. Okay, first things first, yes, you need to make sure the specification, as I mentioned, the specification is correct and does it work. That's the main flow, that's the part that the client expects. Everything to be as he ordered. Okay, well, the client mentioned he wants this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Okay, first thing, you need to test everything the client requires, and then you have to be creative. Okay, negative scenarios, edge cases, some cases that the client may not really use, but maybe you can find a way that can trigger some I don't know, crash in the database. I don't know what's possible. It depends on what kind of validations are the validations made on the client side, or they're on the server side. It's really the developer that knows all the details. And sometimes you just need to test every scenario possible, so to make sure everything was covered in the development phase. So as I mentioned all these test cases and all these scenarios, let me know what other scenario did you thought of and I didn't mention in this video. Drop a comment down below and I will look over it. Thank you. Bye.